I know it takes a second. All right. It's counting down. We got to be out there by now. Good morning, Preferred Success Group, and just our small business owners monthly meetup, third Wednesday of every month. Slowly growing out there across the country. I was really hoping Canada was going to show this morning, so we'll find out here if we get a couple folks from Canada. I reached out to a couple people. Man, I want to see Mexico and Canada on here next month. We at least get a couple North American countries, and then we're definitely going to start reaching out to across the big ponds. Normally, you guys know, every month we just kind of self-direct topics and things that we have going on. We talk about a majority of things that are just affecting us, both positive and negative. This is like a support group for business owners, right? We wear a lot of hats. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of things when you own your own business, when you're your own boss and you're your own employee and all those good things. This is the first time we have a special guest with us today. We just thought that this was a killer thing that small business people in general can help spread the word on. And I think even though it's a local organization here in Wisconsin, it's one of those initiatives that when people hear about, it's one of those things where they go, well, we should do that too. We should do that here. And it's going to take small business people. And it is about helping build Black wealth, or helping build, I just should say non-white wealth, right? Like it's before anybody wants to, take offense to anything that's said today. We're not going to hear a debate about, the racial prejudicial issues of the world and get into these simple arguments for these very, very complex problems, right? But so we're just going to talk about this organization, what it's all about, and then have people share what they think and feel about it, and we can go on with any other self-directed topics that anybody else wants to, get into. So looks like we've at least got the East Coast, the Midwest, and a couple of other spots. And maybe it's just too early in the darn morning for California. I have no idea. But without further ado, for the group that's here, I want to introduce Sara Alvarado. She is the person who has helped spearhead putting this organization together and is going to talk to us a little bit about that today. So Sara, if that was a really crappy introduction, I apologize. Feel free to introduce yourself, kind of, tell everybody what you got going on and what this is all about. But, thanks for agreeing to meet with Lane and I in our group this morning and just help spread the word. And I know it's helpful for you guys too. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks, Lane, for inviting me. And so I am Sara Alvarado. I am a broker owner with my husband. We own the Alvarado Real Estate Group in Madison, Wisconsin, and I do a lot of writing and speaking. I am not active in the sales. So we have agents that we mentor, et cetera. And I do a lot of community advocacy work. So what I'm bringing to you today is a program initiative that we started called Own It, Building Black Wealth. And the way I present and the way I hope today can roll is, if you have questions, specifically Dan and Lane, if you want to interrupt me at any point, to have me either slow down or explain a little bit more in depth, because it is complicated, I am happy to do that. So this isn't like a formalized here and then here and then here. So
yeah, well, Sara, I think I can at least help intro it a little bit, because I attempted to help earlier on, and as a 3 different shades of white guy, misunderstood the help that I was kind of being asked to provide. And so I think that will help a good majority of the folks here, just because, as far as I look around, I did invite some other Black and brown people this morning, but Lane's the only one here.
That's the point,
so
Dan.
There we go.
The whole point.
So all of you, the whole point of spreading this word is, we're not looking I thought, oh man, they're looking for leadership. Well, that's me. I'm a leader. I'm like this hard charging person that can go in and help. And they're like, yeah, but Dan, we're looking for leaders that don't look like you. And I think that's, at least for me, it was like this. I was kind of like put off by it, right? And it's not my fault. It's like I wasn't really thinking about it in the way, and I didn't understand it the way that maybe I hope everyone else here does by the end of this or whatever. But it was like, there's something that I learned throughout it where it was like, I've gotten to learn from different things and take advantage of different programs from people that look like me. Mm-hmm. And in the areas where I grew up and things like that. Now, and then I tried to put myself in a little bit different shoes, because at first I was like, well, wait, Sara, isn't there already a bunch of programs, out there to help minority people, to help, lower income people, like whatever? Isn't there already a bunch of programs that aren't being utilized and everything else? And I'm like, why can't we just work harder to make those work? And that was kind of the whole point. It was like, they're not working, and it's not because you, Dan, a person who wants to help isn't trying hard enough. It needs to look different. And so I hope that helps, at least kind of.
Well, I really appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty about what your process has been, because I am a white person. I'm married to a Mexican man, so my last name is Alvarado, which kind of throws people off sometimes, but I'm super white, raised in the Midwest, and come from an educated family, middle class. My dad was in real estate, so I had the benefit of learning real estate through him. And so the initiative is run by an advisory team that is very multiracial. So I'm coming to you today with a lot of my aspects of it. I have a lot of real estate experience, but we've got Jeff Mack, who is with Park Bank, and Grace Trewartha, who's a financial advisor. Tiffany Malone is a realtor, and Justice Castañeda is the executive director of Commonwealth Development. And then we have a whole host of other folks that have been supporting this process. It's taken about a year to actually get the logistics. And what makes it unique, and one of the reasons like why Dan was saying, well, we already have programs in place, is because it's not working for Black and brown communities. Okay, so like if we look at how the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968, and since 1968, the wealth gap has increased. It hasn't decreased. The wealth gap specifically between white families and Black families. So like if we thought that, oh, well, passing this is just gonna make it all better, that can work in certain initiatives. Like when we're talking about employment laws, discrimination can absolutely change overnight when you put that into place. But when you're talking about real estate and how segregated our neighborhoods became because of these covenants and restrictions, now all of a sudden by just changing the discrimination law, that does not all of a sudden shift the massive accumulation of wealth that was created in real estate. So like there needs to be more that is focused on building Black wealth. And I specifically talk about Black wealth. We obviously think that all brown people of color need to have access to wealth. But one of the reasons that we specifically say Black wealth is because in 100% of the covenants and restrictions, it named either you couldn't sell to Black or actually, they didn't say Black, they used Negro. And 100% was geared towards discriminating against Black folks. And then there were also Jewish, there was Japanese, like, so there was a mixture of discrimination, but 100% was anti-Blackness. And as we focus on that, it absolutely helps and supports other people who are consistently discriminated against.
And Sara, can I interject one piece too that I think was really important? Because let's face it, this is on the internet where people are horrible to other people because there's no repercussions for sitting behind a screen. It's not also saying that there isn't disenfranchised, poor white folk in the world,
right.
But that's really what I think becomes the major problem when people are just trying to learn about these things, is they think, well, if this focus is over here, that means the anti-focus or the negative side is on the other. And I think that's a really important part for people to at least try to start to understand that redlining and things like this, it was geographic. It's not saying it didn't catch your family. So if you have an individual story and you happen to be light-skinned, it doesn't mean these things didn't affect you, but these initiatives and everything are specifically going back and trying to address the very, very specific parts that were targeted. So
yeah, hardship and poverty impacts all people, and yet your skin color doesn't get in the way of you being able to have access to opportunities in the same way that it does to folks who don't have white skin. So that is a whole nother conversation, and
It is.
we'll go into that another day. But so that's one of the things, like if we want to start this basic conversation with the facts that the wealth gap has increased, the racial disparities within home ownership. The 2017 number is 72% of white families were homeowners in Wisconsin compared to 36 of people of color. So you would think that if it was just a matter of a discrimination shift in law, that those numbers would be different, but it's way more complicated. And
and it's way longer too, right? I mean, when you think about it, like it takes you 30 plus years these days because most people don't pay their house off in, a 15-year mortgage. If something happened 3 generations ago, it's still very, very much affecting. And it wasn't that long ago. Those dates that you just gave, 1968.
100%. Yeah.
It's not that long ago. We're not even talking about one house paid off yet, dang near.
Exactly. Right.
So, okay. Yeah.
And when you do have that wealth accumulation through real estate, what happens is a family then is children receive money from their parents. But when you grow up and you don't have that kind of that buffer, that real estate, I mean, it could be other things, but real estate is your basic for home ownership. Then as you gain money and you make money, you're actually using that money to support other family members. So that is going up to supporting your family. I mean, you look at the Latinx community, so many families are taking care of their elders and their siblings, et cetera, and then their children. Whereas a lot of white folks who go out to dinner with their parents are the first one to pick up the bill, which is and it's a generalization, but it's this concept of, oh, well, you make a lot of money, you should be able to save money, you should be able to buy a home. Your credit shouldn't be that impacted because you have this great job and you've got this education. Well, when you look at how people use the wealth from their real estate, student loans, being able to open businesses, being able to have some money to help with medical bills,
leverage, right?
That impacts why the wealth gap is the way it is. And we're not talking about income disparities, we're talking about the wealth gap. And you all get that because you're all in real estate. So why are we looking at trying to create another down payment assistance program? Because I don't know about you all, but a lot of realtors that I talk to and lenders that I talk to stay as far away as possible from down payment assistance programs because they're complicated, they screw up deals, and they have a lot of restrictions on them. So the reason that there are restrictions is because a lot of times it's federal money, and it's, so here's one of the ways that we can look at how, well, let me first explain what Own It is. It is an education program that offers financial literacy and homeownership education to families and staff at One City Schools. And One City Schools is a local school in Madison that's like it's going to be K through 12 pretty soon here. And 85% of the families at One City Schools are families of color. So one of the reasons that we partnered with One City Schools, and this is something that anyone can do in any other community, is that we are in compliance with the Fair Housing Law in that any family that's enrolled can go through the education program and apply for the funds. We are not discriminating based on race. Whereas any other down payment assistance program, it has to be available to anyone. So whereas pre-1968, we could explicitly deny Black and brown people from access to loans and buying in certain developments, after that, we can't explicitly support financially the people that were explicitly denied. So we can't say this program is for Black and brown homeowners because that's against the law.
It's a tracking issue, right? It's almost a geographic tracking issue as much as it was directly tied to skin color back, when it was happening and still is today. It was also geographic because let's face it, not every place in this country or around the world probably did this exist. There may have been, areas or whatever where it didn't exist, where maybe
what didn't exist.
I guess specific.
It's all over.
Do you think though that there was any area in the country where they didn't specifically target, where it was still happening, but it wasn't done by politicians? It wasn't done by people that voted to do it.
Well, no,
or was it all 50 states?
Redlining was a federal way
50
for backing loans. So yeah, covenants and restrictions it's national.
50
So,
state, 50 statewide. All right.
Yeah.
Good deal.
And so this is an issue, and the whole way of how do we create access to funds and opportunities for people of color when we are not able to do that because of the law. This the reason that we're partnering with One City Schools is for that reason, is because we know that if we make it available to everyone in compliance with the law at that school, 85% of the folks who might apply will be families of color. Whereas, I see a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I make a comment? One of the other things, I mean, you're kind of going through and talking about the redlining practice and things of that nature. If you go back and read some of the history of kind of wealth building and home ownership, especially for minorities, go back even a little farther to the GI Bill. The white males that came back from fighting wars got approved for a loan for a GI Bill. The people of color were denied.
And that was even prior to that, right?
So, I mean, when you start looking at that, this is a much deeper, deeper cavern that actually exists that has divided this country for a long time. And kind of give you a little bit of kind of where I'm at, or a background is that we adopted, a biracial daughter. And so we're very, very much in tune. And my wife actually teaches in Madison School District, and she's trying to bring up awareness of how children are actually microaggressioned and, basically are singled out, even though the principal and the teachers and the staff don't even happen to realize it. The big advantage that we all have is a way of being able to help is because we are given this kind of fathership type of a white privilege thing, which is one of the only ways of being able to try to lift up the minority groups, to get them recognized and to get them pointed in the right directions, to help them get educated, to help them, put things in a better position to be able to have some things of building wealth and not just living day to day.
Rock and roll.
It's a social thing.
And Michael, I want to reserve the time too, so that Sarah can do a Q&A at the end.
Yeah.
And no, you're totally all right, man. You're bringing up an issue that it's bigger than just these one things. This is not a simple thing to go point an arrow at, Right.
And that point about the GI Bill, 98% of the loans offered, which was the first time there was that 30-year fixed low interest rate, 98% of those went to white families. So if you could imagine the wealth that could have been created for Black families if that discrimination didn't happen with that GI Bill, that was a huge missed opportunity.
Right.
It was missed way back then. And
so
bigger and deeper than that, but I won't take that. I won't take away your scope for your time, but I did want to add in a couple of things too, that it's been continuous, where they've kind of eliminated opportunities because of, how our system is set up for us, for, the majority white people.
And I think that's the important part of this. It's not about what needs to be taken away from anyone. It's what needs to be added to those that didn't get, and I think that's the important part that you're kind of, saying. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. So, and this didn't just end in 1968, right? There's a lot of people, especially from my experience in real estate, when I went through the education program to get my license, very, very little about the historical context of it. And it made it sound like it was so far back in the day. Whereas if you look at the predatory lending practices that happened in 2005 through 2010, that led also to the short sale and foreclosure markets, it's here and it's relevant, and we can see it in our in our daily business. And that is one of the challenges that we are asking the real estate, banking, and financial industries and fields to do, is to explore where you see it today. So one example is the reason that we can't just give money to community members. Like we can't just say, oh, here's a fund, because the banks will allow family gifting. So a 30-year fixed, as you all know, allows family gifting. And family gifting is, $15,000. There's like a little tax loophole for wealthy families to be able to offer that. So if I wanted to go in and say, hey, Dad, I need extra help with my down payment, he just tells the bank, sends them a letter. Super easy. Like it can happen 3 weeks prior to close. If I want to get a community grant for $15,000 because I don't have any family members that have money, I now have to have a down payment assistance program that I have to get the money from. Or even if I'm just giving it to like a friend, the bank isn't going to let that fly. Like they're going to flag it. And if it is a down payment assistance program, now it's a contingency on your offer. So whereas once we had risky neighborhoods, now we have risky offers. And a risky offer is an offer with a less than ideal financing contingency. Says who? Says how the system works, right? So like as a realtor, it's my job to explain to my seller, hey, here's an offer with a 30-year fixed 20% down. And here's one. Now, even if it's only 5% down, no down payment assistance program, it's still considered a less than offer. Your price could be the same. The seller could get the same amount of money. Does it even matter to the seller what the financing is, but how is it presented? So no longer are we at the point where we're like, no longer, I don't think we ever were, where, hey, here's an opportunity to sell to a first generation home buyer. It's literally all about the numbers all of the time. So where realtors do have impact is how we're having conversations with our clients. And our clients are really getting smart. I mean, the book, The Color of Law, has spread, which I'm going to just have you all write down.
Sure, yeah, The Color of Law. And who's the author on that one? I'll put it on the screen.
Richard Rothstein.
Okay.
And I have a link to some racial justice toolkits and resources for real estate people that
Cool.
I can also throw up there.
And we can also throw comments on this one afterwards too, so that people can access those. That's be awesome.
Cool. So I think that the conversations are happening, and it's really important that we're part of the conversations and that we're proactive versus reactive to what our clients are learning and understanding about how wealth works within our community. So that whole family gifting and community gifting, why can't the community be the family that Black families were denied? Like really, why can't we create programs so that they can have access to funding in whatever way we want to do it? So that's a policy that we can also ask our real estate associations to help us change. Like, why can't a 30-year fixed allow for community gifting? Why is it only family? FHA allows for community gifting. It's not, they call it grants, not
right.
Gifting. I'm using the word gifting because I think we should be able to use that word, but you can't use that word because it's not a gift because that's only family. So FHA, which is a less loan product, they allow for community grants and down payment assistance programs. So we have to watch out for that. And then we also just have to watch out for like why these restrictions are the way they are. Is it another way of policing where people can live? So a lot of down payment assistance programs. There's one, for example, the city of Madison, which I'm all for having money accessible. But if you look at the reality of it, if you had a buyer come in and say, I have $20,000 from the city of Madison, I can only buy in the city of Madison. I can't go outside of Madison. And the restriction is I can't buy a house for more than $268,000. And so there's a price limit on it. There's an income restriction. If I make too much money, I can't access that money. And I have to have all these extra lead-based paint inspections, even if the house is built after 1970.
And to your point, Sarah, we've got somebody on this call right now that's dealing with a client. They got a $55,000 chunk. Got to stay in Madison, under 200,000 with all those restrictions. Right. And it's like, it's okay. That's great. There's $55,000 waiting for this person that can help them. And there's no way they're going to be able to utilize it staying around here. I mean, they might be able to find a beat up condo. So yeah, sorry. And I know we don't need to get into the weeds on this whole real estate.
But that is just like, that is where we have to see, okay, so how is that problematic? We see it problematic, but then what are we going to do about it? So we created a down payment assistance program that's $15,000 per family that goes through the education program at one city. The education program is going to be, is taught by communities of color, professionals of color. I mean, obviously there will be white folks that will come in too, because, you know, our industries are super white. But the focus is around building community and trusting people to be able to make their own decisions based on the education that they get. So we are not telling people what to do and how to do it. We are literally explaining how the system works, how it's been rigged, and it's rooted in racial justice in a way that will empower people to make their own decisions. Whereas sometimes programs are like, hey, let's get a bunch of people into homes, which is, in my opinion, kind of how predatory lending happened, right? Like, we need to hit this goal of getting X amount of people in this neighborhood into home ownership, but then there's no education around to what kind of loan product. I mean, there was a lot of people who got loans through the ITIN products, and they were 5-year balloons. And then once that balloon came up, you know, short sales and foreclosures were abound. So,
well, and let's face it, it's not just about the product, it's risk, learning to risk and analyze, right? I mean, one thing, you know, like when they got told by their financial professional, this is a good thing for you, this is a good thing for you, but the risk was not better than the reward was ever going to be.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to just get your credit, you know, spend 2 years getting your credit up and figuring out how to get some more saving, like whatever. There's lots of different ways to do it. So the team of educators are there to do some basic financial literacy and homeownership understanding that will then carry through after they close. So understanding PMI, understanding refinancing, understanding how a home works, and creating that community. Whereas I can call my dad because he's owned a home and he knows a bunch of plumbers. Like the power of connections and who knows who and how to access that comes from community. And so one of the things we're trying to build within this program is that community of homeownership and financial literacy support. And then the fund, once they apply for the money, that comes from FCI, Forward Community Investments. They're the ones that are fiscally sponsoring this. So they are the ones where when you all donate money to the fund, it goes to an account at FCI. And then once a family member applies for the money, that they're gonna have a restricted account opened in their name, and it'll sit for 6 to 9 months earmarked. So there's no like, you have to get a home in the next 60 days, otherwise the money is gone. Like that's not how this is going to play out, because we know that's really unrealistic. Also, sometimes the bank might need to see that money it has to be there for 2 months before they can actually access it, right? So that we don't have to have those extra contingencies on the offer. So all we're doing is trying to figure out a way to eliminate the restrictions that are barriers for people being able to access money and housing. That's like the whole goal.
Right on. I think, and we can open it up to a few questions too. This is such a big, long, complex problem that this is an attempt to solve. Let's be really clear, guys. There is no giant, huge, big, complex problems with simple solutions. If they were simple solutions, we'd have done them. Hopefully, the souls of everybody would have done them a long time ago. That being said, Sara, before I open it up to questions, what do you think because I think a lot of people are like, okay, that sounds great, I can do that. What's the next step for everybody on this meeting or might be watching this video? What is the very first step that you think they should go take today? If you had it your way and you're just like, go do X, what would be the next thing you'd like to have everyone go do?
I would like people to think about how they can contribute to the fund on a transaction basis. So like as realtors, every time we close a house, that can go on the settlement statement. Our sellers can contribute, our buyers can contribute, realtors can contribute through a transaction contribution. You can also do calendar contributions. So if you're a brokerage and you want to contribute quarterly, how can we make it systematic that we're doing a process of redistribution of wealth through the money we make in real estate, which, let's face it, we can make a lot of money. Not everyone's making a lot of money. Sometimes it's really hard in the beginning, right? So it's $25. But if it's systematic and it's something so for some people, some agents in our office, it's a percentage of because a percentage makes more sense if you think about how we get paid. But if you're more comfortable just doing a portion, if it's systematic, you don't have to think about it. And then you can start to explore other ways that you can have impact. But a financial contribution is a start. That would be the first number one way. And then the second thing is to read that book, The Color of Law. You don't have to do a lot if you actually commit to the exploration and the learning process.
So we've got a check equity way, which is if you're out there, you're making some money and everything, we need to fill those funds so that they can keep the program going. The sweat equity way, if you don't have that available to help right now, would be to go learn. Sarah and you and Lane can go on and in the comments of our post here or whatever, and certainly throw up the different websites, and I will too, and the different places people can go. And then we'll also put that book up there too. Does anybody that's on the call this morning, Brittany, Michael, Bex, Clinton, Tyler, Irick, Ben, Jake or Randy, or Lane, anybody have questions that we want to make for Sarah while she's here? Go ahead, Michael.
I may. I'll keep it a little easier and a little less depth. So I have several people that I'm trying to get into home ownership for the first time. They're, like I said, they've been probably struggling for years of minority. I think a lot of it is education. The other thing that it seems like I struggle with is trying to get their credit scores to a level where they're a little more qualified, because I don't think they pay attention to it quite as closely as a lot of people. Is there a place is there a website? Is there people other than, I guess, credit improvement,
or maybe
bankers?
that are just a little bit more look like a place that they could get the help from? Because I know that's
Right.
what I kind of started this off with. Yeah, Sarah, is there specific credit repair places that has anybody jumped on board with Own It yet? That's specifically in the credit repair space. I know Park Bank jumped on as far as, some good financial backing. Is there any other services?
There's a lot of education around credit, and sometimes that's gained more through a cohort of let's meet quarterly to check in, because building credit, there's the first part where you have to go and figure everything out, and then there's what needs to happen next to build that credit. So I do support. I know Sabrina Madison is hosting a financial literacy program. And that is the Progress Center for Black Women. I will find a list for you. The education program we've created is through Own It. So only families at Own It can, or at one city can go through that. But some credit union has a lot of opportunities. UW Credit Union too. So it just depends on Lemar Welch. He's a lender at Novus, and he's taught a couple of classes that we've offered around credit building.
So, and we have some lenders on the call here too, and I know there'll be people watching this. Maybe this is a really great call to find hopefully some people of color that want in your organizations that want to help you spearhead and make sure that this exists if it doesn't already. Or at least have a good direction at your institution, because I think that's one of the things, Sarah, that you were bringing up earlier. Is this is about getting it educated no matter where the heck they land.
It's really frustrating to go to a bank and to get denied, and then to have the lender just be like, oh yeah, not now. Because what happens is people just kind of shut down, and that no feels like a no forever. And there's no one typically that comes in to say, hey, here's what can happen next, and here's your timeline, and here's a plan so that no becomes a yes. That doesn't happen. I've been asking banks to hire that to happen, and I don't see that investment. So if y'all know bankers, that's a huge investment.
Okay, good call.
I was just also
else?
say,
Go ahead.
Stepping back just one half step on that, I says, these are individuals or groups of people that probably are intimidated by banks.
Yeah.
That's exactly why this is happening.
They probably don't have a savings account or a checking account, maybe a checking account, but very limited experiences with banks. So, I'm encouraging them and supporting them and trying to put them in camps where they can get some help, and then following up with them like every 3 or 4 weeks just to see, how their credit process is coming along. But unless unless you're holding their hand and giving them support or guidance along the way, I know it would fall on the wayside, and the dream of trying to work hard and to get into their first home, what they're excited about, kind of dwindles if
like you said, it'll piddle out if you don't get that fresh start,
so,
you know?
So that's why I'm trying to find, is there somebody that also can come alongside with them that they feel assured with, that don't, you know, that they trust. I don't think they trust banks. And I hate to say it that way, but I think the sense I'm getting.
There's nothing wrong with saying that, because that's the truth. When you look at the historical way that banks have engaged in Black communities, it's not, I mean, like, and Latinx, I mean, like, in lots of different ways, the banks have failed the communities of color. Realtors have too. So like, we all play a part in it. And now it's a matter of looking at it differently.
I agree. And I think it's important for everybody to just, and this is a call for individually, what can you do? This isn't a call to, continue to, it's not pointing the finger at your ancestors or what this person did, whatever. It's now at this point, like, how can you individually help make this better, not make it worse? And I think that's, Michael, as far as what, exact resources, I'm going to let you offline, look up the website and some of those other things or whatever. But I think from all of us that are in business, because we've got a couple of business owners on here that aren't in the financial world, we need your help to spread, this very same thing, because let's face it, there's only a couple of ways you can build wealth as a little person, as a small financial person in this world, and owning a home in this country is one of the only ways. I mean, to really get started to actually having wealth and everything else. Do we have other questions from the group?
I have to say quickly that I
Sure.
put 3 different links in. It's in a private chat. I don't know how to make it.
Oh, sorry.
So if you want to just take those and put them somewhere else, I don't know where to put them.
You got it.
And then I got a shout out to Ben with First American Title, who's on the call today, because he's helped me a lot figure out what's possible and what's not possible for contributions. And can we, fundraising is one thing. We go and ask for money, no problem. But to make it sustainable, we as an industry can create fund producing, which is per transaction and calendar contributions. So the fact that if you look at transfer taxes, if we look at how when when property is transferred, for our ability to then take that opportunity to create funding for Black communities to get into home ownership, that's powerful. I mean, if a seller's like, I'm just making 50 grand more than I thought I was going to make, can I shoot over $1,000 to this fund? I mean, sellers are making a lot of money right now. How can that be witnessed on a seller?
It's easier for people with options to be giving when those options are presented. Let's face it.
And if the title company can make it easy for us, oh, please, please, please help us out.
Hey, they make it easy at a drive-through a lot of time. Would you like to donate your change to X, or whatever? This is not much different. It's just maybe there'll be some more zeros, right? So, excellent. Yeah. Any other questions in there for anybody?
Sure, this is Ben. Thank you for the shout out, but more importantly, thank you for being such an advocate in regards to this topic and bringing it attention to us on this call, and also the other platforms by which you've spoken on it. And I was happy to help from our aspect within the industry, but the past is not the present, but we need to know where we were, just like title insurance, to know how to find a solution to move forward. So it's conversations such as this that hopefully formulate those solutions to making a systemic change. So thank you.
One small step at a time. One small step at a time. Anybody else? Clinton.
I apologize for coming late.
Hey, that's all right, sir.
I don't know if anything was spoken about. The education part of this, just in my opinion, Belize has to be somewhere at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
Where we get those freshmen and sophomores in some type of class or program, to where we start talking about living life as a minority instead of the status quo programs that they've got, right now. I know Sun Prairie's got something set up where, they've got a class where, they go through something like this where they have a forum where they go through all these other different tables. They get to talk to somebody, insurance, a lender, a realtor, jobs, and they've got to try to go get a job from one of the tables, try to see if they can either rent or get a mortgage, from, another table. What is I guess you can call it plan, Sarah, of being able to get, with Home Buyers Roundtable, yes, that's out there, but that's too late. In my opinion, this needs to start at the high school level.
Yeah.
Because, even me as a kid, I'm 60 years old. And first thing that,
and by the way, you can't really tell that Clinton grew up black in this current environment because you can't barely see him because the window behind you is highlighting it. But I thought I would throw that out there for anybody watching.
I'm graduating high school, and the first thing I'm thinking about is my car. I'm gonna go buy $3,000 worth of rims to put on my car, so as I'm rolling down the road, hey, I'm looking bad,
looking good.
That's important.
$3,000 and thinking about buying a house.
So that's where
or credit. Even if the kids were to be able to understand credit coming out of high school, think of how that would shift, because so many people have to get out of that credit hole, to even get, like, what if we started out learning credit?
Didn't get them in a hole, right?
Right.
Financing and priorities, and that needs to be taught. You're right, in a high school environment. And I did go to Sudbury High School, and to this day I still get calls from students that want to sit down and talk about how do I own a house? What are the steps to buying a house?
And it would be even better, and no offense to you whatsoever, Michael, but it would be even better is if Clinton went and did it, or Lane went and did it, because then they're learning it. They're learning for someone who looks like them and not someone who looks like you. And so, I mean, and I know that's a hard thing for some people to hear and understand or whatever without getting like heated or whatever, but it just is what it is.
That is exactly what it is.
Urban League does a lot of education programs. So supporting Urban League, they also have some initiatives for home ownership and rent to own programs. I know that there are local initiatives. I know that the MMSD, for the first time ever in 2019, started their mandatory, or whatever you want to call it, like you have to take a financial literacy class. But that's the first time it's ever been offered in the Madison schools. But yeah, I think we should all check in with our schools and say, hey, do you want someone to come and help do some teaching? Because that hasn't been offered at all.
And Lane, you were about to say something, I think, just maybe in regards to your experience or whatever, education wise. And
I necessarily don't think it needs to be people who look like me to teach that, because I'm a perfect example. I learned from farmers. I grew up in the country. We had 40 acres. My dad had land. I'm a third generation multiple property owner. So it can come a couple different ways. I don't want to discredit. In the black community, we got this term called think white. And I always giggle because my cousins always say that, because they've went through the experience that you guys were talking about, right? The urban experience, bought wheels, rims instead of a car, whereas my grandfather and father drilled into me from about the time I was 9. You can't go wrong buying something God makes no more of. And if there's a house on it, awesome, right? And that's how I learned, and that was how. So I guess my point is, when I got to that 18-year-old stage of Clinton's age, it wasn't on my agenda to buy a car with rims. It was, how do I get a house, a little small house? Or in this case, it was 15 acres of farmland, I remember. And that was my graduation gift. That's how I got started, right? So my head, it almost needs to start. And I went to college, and that's paid for college, and sold it a couple years later when I got out of college, and that's how I got over to Milwaukee. So anyway, the point is, I think it's just education. You got to get their parents to start right.
Well, and Lane, isn't your example just now the exact thing Sarah was speaking of? Yep. It was a generational gift.
Yep. Right. Your generation teaches that, and also helps you get started in that.
Yep. For sure.
There's groups that do it real well, and other ones don't do it at all, or even think about it. And they need to start kind of having an awareness of how that gives them a better leg up on life or step up on life.
So that's what
they can do a lot more
gonna
things.
promote here. Literally running out of time at this point. Sara, I can't thank you enough for taking this. I mean, you took a whole hour out of your morning just for our small little group, but I do hope that this
makes a big difference. It makes a big difference.
This recording will live on, right? So that's what's cool about doing it live. And I appreciate everybody's opportunities here to speak, to share, to be out, to be open about this. More importantly, to be positive and loving in regards to this issue. I really just I think we need a lot more of that these days. There's complex problems. If people are offering simple, hateful solutions, we all know that it's never going to work. So from that standpoint, I hope everybody understands how complex this can be. There is no easy conversation about this. There is no easy wand to fix many, many years of things going wrong. But that doesn't mean we need to sit and worry about how it went wrong. I think that's where, Ben, your comment was really eloquent. We need to remember the past. We need to know what the heck is going on so that we can better educate, but we also need to live right now. And what can we do right now? Thank you guys, everybody, for coming. Sara, we'll put more of I did post some of the links. We'll continue to put those links down in there. And then we'll boost this out, this video, this education, this piece can hopefully live on. And if you're okay with it, I'll probably cut out a couple of your main clips or whatever, and we'll attempt to promote even more so that we can just spread the word. That's what we're here to do. So thank you again. Does anybody just have any thank yous or any parting ways, comments?
Yeah, huge. I'm gonna jump on.
Go ahead, Lane.
I'm gonna jump on Ben's bandwagon. Thank you, sir. I remember the first meeting we had. You were like, I don't know if I should be the one to run this, and I think a year later, you've proven that you are more than capable and the perfect person to run it. So thanks for pushing and keeping me involved. And a lot of people have come in and out of that group, and in a year, you've done a lot of work getting One City Schools connected, Park Bank, the fund. I mean, it's impressive. So I'm looking forward to staying in touch and helping any way that I can.
Yeah. Thank you, Lane. We do need all the help we can get. So check out the website, ownitbbw.com, and keep on rocking on, sell some houses.
All right, everybody have a great rest of your week. Remember, we're back here every third Wednesday of the month. Next month, we'll be having our normal format where we're here to support. Hopefully, every month forward as we get out of COVID, there'll be less tears, less angst, less everything. But this month, thank you for the investment in time in learning about this. And if I could ask, as a personal ask from everybody here that comes to these meetings, go reach out to one person today. Decide whether you can make a financial contribution regularly, systematically, as Sara pointed out. Can you do this, for a period of time? If you can't do the financial piece, I'm at least going to go read the book because I haven't. So if nothing else, do a little bit of sweat equity on it. But that's my ask: is spread this to one person, right away, so that you've gotten that one thing done. And then, as always, we're trying to get more small business people to come to this meeting every month that aren't just in the financial sectors, because we are trying to spread this to business owners of all kinds. Because one of the things on the website too is helping people start businesses too, to be business owners, which then other people can see, oh, they're successful at it. And that's how this works. So thanks everybody for coming. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, your month, and we'll see you next month.